Step away from the vehicle. Now.
Is there a problem, officer?
Where'd you get that uniform?
I'm a Navy SEAL. I just came from a ceremony.
You got ID?
Yes. But what am I being detained for?
Hands on the car. Don't argue.
The order was sharp, cutting through the quiet hum of a gas station at night. Step away from the vehicle now. Hands where I can see them. Deputy Travis Holbrook moved with an aggressive certainty, his hand hovering over his duty belt. He had seen what he believed was a clear violation. A black man in an immaculate Navy uniform, appearing far too authentic to be real. Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, a decorated Navy SEAL with 16 years of service and multiple combat deployments, slowly raised his hands. He had just finished pumping gas. His voice was calm, controlled. "Officer, I'm just getting gas. Is there a problem?" Holbrook saw a challenge. He saw deception. He didn't see a war hero returning from a memorial service heading to surprise his mother. He saw a man impersonating military, and in his mind, that was a federal crime. Holbrook advanced, his gaze sweeping over Mitchell's dress blue uniform, the precise alignment of ribbons, the unmistakable gold seal trident on his chest. "Military costume isn't funny. You need to take it off right now." Mitchell's heart sank. After 16 years, combat wounds, and friends buried, his uniform was being called a costume. He recognized the tone, the assumption. This wasn't about the uniform. This was about something else entirely. For 9 years, Deputy Travis Holbrook had patrolled the streets of San Bernardino County. In that time, 14 formal complaints had been filed against him. Every single one involved a person of color. Every complaint followed a disturbing pattern: a demand for permits from a black family barbecuing, the detention and search of a Hispanic teenager's backpack, the questioning of an Asian businessman about terrorism. The pattern was ignored. Supervisors noted his overzealous nature, suggested cultural sensitivity training, but never imposed consequences. Holbrook remained on patrol, his biases unchallenged, his judgment unchecked. This unchecked bias brought him to the Chevron station on Highland Avenue at 10:54 p.m. He had responded to an anonymous call. A suspicious black guy wearing what looks like a military costume. The caller, later traced to a nearby apartment, claimed the man looks threatening and doesn't look like he should be wearing that. The dispatcher, following procedure, asked if any threats had been made. The answer was no, but Holbrook's internal narrative was already set: stolen valor. He didn't consider verification. He didn't question why someone impersonating military would wear such an elaborate, perfectly fitted dress uniform, complete with specific, expensive medals and ribbons. His assumptions overrode reality. He pulled into the station, lights flashing, approaching it as a criminal matter, not a welfare check. Mitchell, still calm, extended his military ID. "Sir, I'm not impersonating anyone. This is my uniform. I earned it. I can show you my military ID, my orders, anything you need to verify." Holbrook snatched the card, glanced at it for barely 3 seconds, then handed it back. Anyone can print a fake ID. They sell them online for $20. The response was instant dismissal, a complete rejection of tangible evidence. Other customers were starting to watch. A man at Pump 3 slowed his movements. A woman inside the convenience store pressed against the glass. What would compel an officer to dismiss official credentials so quickly? Mitchell tried again, pointing to his chest. "These ribbons, these medals, they're in the correct order. The Navy Cross, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with V device. These represent specific awards. You can verify every one of them." Holbrook's voice was flat, devoid of interest. "Anyone can buy fake medals online. I've seen it before." It was a wall of unwavering certainty built on prejudice. Mitchell made one final plea for reason. "Officer Holbrook, I'm Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell. I've served 16 years in the Navy, 12 as a SEAL. I have my military ID. I'm asking you to verify my credentials through official channels before this goes any further." The plea was met with an ultimatum. "Take off that uniform right now. You're not authorized to wear it. Remove it immediately." The demand hung in the air. Strip out of a uniform earned through blood and sacrifice in public, under hostile scrutiny. Mitchell's composure, forged in combat zones, began to fray. "I'm not stripping out of my dress uniform at a gas station, sir. This is my uniform. I'm authorized to wear it. I'm an active duty officer." Holbrook reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is 3 Adam 12. I need backup at the Chevron station on Highland. Suspect is belligerent, refusing lawful orders. Possible stolen valor situation." Mitchell's voice, though still controlled, carried across the lot, captured by the recording phones now appearing. "I am not belligerent. I am not refusing lawful orders. I am a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy, and I'm being unlawfully detained." Holbrook stepped closer, invading Mitchell's personal space. "You're impersonating a military officer. That's a federal crime under the Stolen Valor Act. You're under arrest." The words were chilling. Holbrook, blinded by his own prejudice, was about to commit multiple federal felonies: deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment, assault on a military service member. He could not see it. His bias was absolute. Mitchell took a slow, deliberate breath, the kind learned when survival depends on calm. "Sir, I've served this country for 16 years. I've deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. I've been wounded in combat. I've saved lives. I've earned every ribbon on this uniform. I'm not a criminal. I'm asking you one more time to verify my credentials before you make a mistake that destroys your career." Holbrook's response was final, laced with malice. "Your career is over, buddy. You're going to jail." As 2 more patrol cars pulled into the station, their lights flashing, the true gravity of Holbrook's actions began to unfold. 2 more patrol cars pulled into the Chevron station, lights swirling, sirens winding down. Deputies Maria Santos and Jeff Coleman stepped out, their expressions immediately assessing the scene. A black man in a pristine military uniform, hands raised, demeanor calm. Opposite him, their colleague, Deputy Holbrook, stood aggressive, confrontational. The stark contrast was undeniable. Santos approached first, attempting to gauge the situation. "Holbrook, what's the situation?" Holbrook's response was immediate and firm. "Stolen valor. Subject is impersonating a naval officer, refuses to remove the fake uniform, refuses lawful orders." His words were a summary, but a summary based on a predetermined conclusion, not observed facts. Santos looked at Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, at the meticulously arranged ribbons on his chest, at the undeniable authenticity of the uniform. She saw the Navy Cross at the top, an award not easily faked without specialized knowledge. She turned to Mitchell. "Sir, can you identify yourself?" Mitchell's voice was steady, professional, conveying a deep exhaustion from the absurdity of the situation. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, United States Navy SEALs." I showed Deputy Holbrook my military ID. I've asked him repeatedly to verify my credentials through Naval Base San Diego or NCIS. He's refused. This is an unlawful detention. Deputy Coleman stepped closer, his gaze meticulously examining Mitchell's uniform. He recognized the correct precedence of the ribbons, the genuine weight and quality of the Gold Seal Trident. These were not the cheap imitations often associated with stolen valor cases. He turned to Holbrook. "Holbrook, did you verify his ID?" The question was a challenge to Holbrook's narrative, an implicit demand for due diligence. Holbrook's dismissive response was unwavering. "It's fake. Anyone can see that." Santos, following standard procedure, pulled out her phone. "What base are you assigned to, sir?" Mitchell provided the details without hesitation. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, SEAL Team 3. My commanding officer is Captain Raymond Torres. The duty officer tonight should be Lieutenant Hayes. You can call the quarterdeck. They'll confirm my identity in 2 minutes. This was the critical moment for Holbrook's narrative of deceit to be exposed by simple verification. But Holbrook intervened, grabbing Santos's arm, obstructing her attempt to follow protocol. "We don't need to call. I'm telling you it's fake." Santos pulled her arm away, her expression hardening. "Holbrook, if there's any chance he's legitimate, we verify. That's basic procedure." Holbrook, however, was too committed to his bias, too deep in his predetermined story. His response shattered any remaining pretense of professional judgment. "He's not legitimate. He's black. Look at him. You really think he's a Navy SEAL?" The words hung in the night air, captured by the growing number of recording phones echoing on the gas station security cameras. The implicit bias that had driven Holbrook's actions for years was now explicit, undeniable. Santos and Coleman both recoiled, their faces reflecting a dawning horror. Mitchell briefly closed his eyes. The truth, finally spoken aloud, confirmed his deepest fears about the encounter. Coleman's voice dropped low. "Holbrook, what did you just say?" But Holbrook was past the point of retraction. "I'm arresting him. Subject turn around. Hands behind your back." Mitchell made a calculated decision. He could resist, escalate the confrontation, or he could comply under protest, meticulously documenting the unfolding injustice. He chose the latter, turning around slowly, placing his hands behind his back. "I'm complying under protest. I am Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, active duty United States Navy SEAL. This arrest is unlawful. I've committed no crime. I've shown proper identification. I've requested verification through official channels. This is being recorded by multiple witnesses and security cameras." Holbrook pulled out his handcuffs and snapped them onto Mitchell's wrists with deliberate force, the metal digging into his skin, crushing against the uniform jacket. Mitchell winced, but remained silent. Santos stood frozen, her phone still in her hand, witnessing a catastrophic error unfold. Coleman's face showed pure dismay. Holbrook walked Mitchell toward his patrol car, a decorated war hero, a man who had earned the Navy Cross, being perp-walked across a gas station parking lot like a common criminal. The public erupted, bystanders shouting protests, urging Holbrook to check credentials, to call the base. They felt powerless, yet recorded, creating an undeniable record of Holbrook's abuse of authority. Why did the public's protest feel so futile in that moment? The drive to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Station lasted 11 minutes. Mitchell sat in the back of Holbrook's patrol car, hands cuffed behind him. Staring out at the familiar streets he had escaped through military service, now seeing them from the indignity of handcuffs, they arrived at 11:19 p.m. Holbrook pulled into the Sally Port, the secure garage out of public view, and led Mitchell into the booking area. Sergeant Luis Moreno, a 19-year veteran, looked up from his computer and froze. A man in full Navy service dress, blues, ribbons, medals, gold trident, handcuffed. Moreno stood slowly. "Holbrook, what the hell did you arrest?" Holbrook repeated his rehearsed narrative. Stolen valor. Subject was at a gas station impersonating a naval officer wearing a fake uniform, fake medals. Refused to remove the uniform when ordered. Refused lawful commands. I'm booking him for impersonating a military officer under federal statute. Moreno walked around his desk, his eyes meticulously examining Mitchell's uniform, the perfect order of the ribbons, the Navy Cross, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with V device, the tailored fit, the mirror shine shoes, the authentic gold trident. This was not a costume. "Sir, what's your name?" Mitchell, calm but exhausted, gave his full identity, rank, and serial number. I showed Deputy Holbrook my military ID. I asked him to verify my credentials. He refused. Moreno carefully retrieved Mitchell's common access card. Under the bright booking lights, he examined it. Intact holograms, visible security chip, embossed Department of Defense seal. This was real. "This looks real," Moreno stated, turning to Holbrook. "It's fake. Anyone can print those," Holbrook insisted, his delusion unbroken. Moreno knew better. He had seen countless fake IDs. And this was not one of them. He pointed to a feature on the card. "Holbrook, this has an RFID chip. You can't fake that." Moreno returned to his desk and picked up his phone. "What base are you assigned to, Commander?" Mitchell gave him the exact details. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, SEAL Team 3. Moreno dialed the 24-hour quarterdeck. Petty Officer Hayes answered. Moreno explained his request. There was a pause. Then Hayes' voice returned, more formal. "Sergeant, I can confirm Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell is an active duty officer assigned to Naval Special Warfare Group 1, SEAL Team 3. What's the nature of your inquiry?" Moreno's face went white. "He's been arrested." The shock in Hayes' voice was palpable. "Arrested for what?" Moreno looked at Holbrook, then at Mitchell, then back at Holbrook. The truth now irrefutable. "He's real. He's an active duty SEAL Team 3 officer. You arrested a Navy SEAL." Within 6 minutes, the situation escalated beyond anything the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department had ever handled. This was no longer a local matter. What would happen when the Pentagon learned of this arrest? Within 6 minutes of Sergeant Moreno's phone call, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department was plunged into a crisis far beyond its experience. Petty Officer Hayes, still on the line, immediately notified his officer of the deck. The chain of command moved with military precision. OD to command, duty officer. CDO to SEAL Team 3, commanding officer, Captain Raymond Torres. Torres, roused from his sleep, instantly grasped the catastrophic implications. Mitchell was returning from a memorial service, heading home to family. An arrest for stolen valor was an insult of unthinkable proportions. At 11:31 p.m., Captain Torres directly contacted the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, NCIS duty officer in San Diego. His message was stark. "This is Captain Torres, SEAL Team 3. One of my officers, Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, has been arrested by San Bernardino County Sheriff. I need NCIS involved immediately." Special Agent Kellerman, quickly pulling up Mitchell's immaculate service record, combat deployments, Navy Cross, Purple Heart, top secret clearance, 0 disciplinary issues, understood the gravity. "Captain, what are the charges?" Torres replied, "Unknown, but he was in dress blues heading to visit his mother. Whatever happened, this needs federal attention." The collapse of Holbrook's fabricated reality was now accelerating. NCIS notified Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters, which holds a direct line to the Pentagon for situations involving Special Operations personnel. By 11:47 p.m., the Pentagon's Naval Operations Center duty officer received the briefing. A decorated Navy SEAL combat veteran unlawfully arrested in California. This wasn't a local issue. This was a national incident, threatening to ignite a firestorm of public outrage and expose systemic failures. How many layers of command would now be forced to react to Holbrook's single biased decision? At 12:30 a.m., Navy Judge Advocate General's Corps, JAG attorneys at Naval Base San Diego were activated. 2 senior military lawyers began the drive to San Bernardino. Pentagon public affairs officers were alerted, bracing for a national story. Meanwhile, Captain Torres took the most direct route possible. At 12:15 a.m., he personally called Sheriff Robert Decker at home. Decker, suddenly awake, listened as Torres, with barely controlled fury, explained that one of his most exemplary officers, a decorated SEAL with 16 years of service, had been arrested at a gas station simply for wearing his uniform. The weight of Torres's next words dropped like an anvil. Sheriff, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell holds a top-secret sensitive compartmented information clearance. He's been on classified deployments. He's earned the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism. And one of your deputies arrested him for stolen valor. I have Navy JAG en route. I have NCIS involved. And I'm about to notify the Secretary of the Navy that one of my SEALs was arrested for being black in uniform. Decker's blood ran cold. The implications were immense. A federal investigation, a Department of Defense inquiry, potentially national headlines, all pointing to his department's systemic failure to address an officer's deeply ingrained racial bias. He immediately called the station, demanding an urgent brief from the watch commander. The watch commander retrieved the booking information, saw Mitchell's name, saw the charges, and confirmed Sergeant Moreno had already verified Mitchell's military status. The truth was undeniable. Sheriff Decker arrived at the station by 12:40 a.m., still in civilian clothes, his face etched with the horror of a leader confronting an unthinkable error. He walked into the booking area where Mitchell still stood, hands now uncuffed, uniform wrinkled, but dignity unbowed. The sight was a searing indictment of his department. "Commander Mitchell, I'm Sheriff Decker. I cannot adequately apologize for what's happened. You're being released immediately. All charges are dropped." Mitchell's voice was quiet, controlled, but carried the immense weight of the injustice. "Sheriff, your deputy arrested a decorated military officer at a gas station for wearing his uniform. He refused to verify my credentials. He demanded I strip out of my dress blues in public. He handcuffed me in front of witnesses. This isn't something an apology fixes." Decker nodded, his face pale. "I understand, sir. We'll conduct a full investigation." Mitchell's response was immediate and final, signaling the complete loss of control for the local agency. "The Pentagon is already conducting their investigation, Sheriff. This is out of your hands now." The line was drawn. The local incident had spiraled into a national scandal, fueled by the unwavering resolve of military command to protect its own, and by the indisputable evidence of Holbrook's racist actions. What kind of fallout would a federal investigation uncover? While Mitchell stood in the booking area waiting for the sheriff to process his release, his complete service record was being pulled up on computer screens from San Diego to Washington, D.C. Every deployment, every mission, every award, every evaluation was reviewed by Navy leadership, NCIS investigators, Pentagon officials, and within hours, the U.S. Attorney's Office. The detailed record painted a picture that made Holbrook's arrest not just wrong, but obscene. Darius Mitchell had enlisted at 22, scored exceptionally on the ASVAB, and chose the grueling path of Buddhist training. He had survived Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous training with a maximum of 4 hours of sleep total. He had endured pool competency tests designed to test calm under duress, the cold, the pain, the instructors pushing candidates to their breaking point. 78% of his class quit. Mitchell earned his Trident, becoming a Navy SEAL. His service record detailed 6 combat deployments over 12 years as a SEAL: Iraq, Ramadi, and Fallujah in 2009, Afghanistan, Helmand Province in 2011, back to Iraq, Mosul in 2014, where his platoon suffered a 40% casualty rate, Syria in 2016 for classified operations, Yemen in 2018 for counterterrorism missions, back to Afghanistan in 2019, training Afghan special forces while conducting direct action missions. Most Americans serve 1 deployment in their entire career. Mitchell had 6. Each one a testament to extraordinary courage and commitment. In 2016, outside Mosul, Mitchell's 8-man SEAL team was ambushed. Heavy machine gun fire from 3 directions, RPGs exploding, walls collapsing. 2 teammates were immediately hit, wounded, unable to move. Mitchell, already hit by shrapnel in his left leg, bleeding, ran into the kill zone. 3 times he re-entered the kill zone, dragging wounded SEALs 40 yards under continuous fire. He then held a defensive position alone for 12 minutes while the team called for air support and evacuated the wounded. He fired his M4 until his ammunition ran out. All 8 teammates survived. This was the man Holbrook had arrested for stolen valor, the man he believed was fake. The contrast was too stark, the injustice too profound to be contained. The swift, decisive intervention by the Pentagon and NCIS meant that Deputy Travis Holbrook's career, once seemingly impervious to consequences, was unequivocally over. Within 24 hours of Mitchell's arrest, Holbrook was placed on administrative leave. The initial local internal investigation was immediately superseded by a joint federal inquiry led by NCIS and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California. This was not merely about Mitchell. It was about the systematic failure of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department to address a documented pattern of racial bias. The federal grand jury quickly convened. Their review of the gas station security footage and bystander recordings was damning. Holbrook's aggressive demeanor, his dismissive handling of Mitchell's military ID, his explicit racist remark, "He's not legitimate. He's black. Look at him. You really think he's a Navy SEAL?" provided incontrovertible evidence. The 14 prior complaints against Holbrook, meticulously ignored by his department, now became crucial evidence of a deeply entrenched pattern. This was not an isolated incident. It was the culmination of years of unchecked abuse. On November 15th, federal prosecutors announced a multi-count indictment against Travis Holbrook. The charges were severe, reflecting the federal nature of the crimes committed under color of law. He was indicted for deprivation of rights under color of law, specifically violating Mitchell's Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful seizure and his 14th Amendment rights to equal protection. Additional charges included false arrest, assault on a federal officer given Mitchell's active duty status, and perjury for his initial false statements in the arrest report and to his supervisors. The irony of Holbrook accusing Mitchell of stolen valor while facing charges for abusing his own badge was palpable. Would the justice system, so often criticized, finally deliver accountability in this case? The trial of United States versus Holbrook began 6 months later, drawing national attention. The prosecution meticulously laid out their case. Surveillance footage from the gas station played for the jury, showing Mitchell's calm, professional demeanor contrasted with Holbrook's escalating aggression. Mitchell himself testified, recounting the indignity of being accused of fraud after years of sacrifice, his voice measured but firm. He described the emotional toll of having his identity and service dismissed because of the color of his skin. The jury heard testimony from Sergeant Moreno, who recounted Holbrook's dismissive attitude towards Mitchell's authentic ID and his unwavering belief that the uniform was fake. Deputies Santos and Coleman testified to Holbrook's explicit racist statement, confirming the deep-seated prejudice driving his actions. The prosecution introduced evidence of Holbrook's 14 prior complaints, demonstrating a clear, documented pattern of targeting individuals based on race and ethnicity. Expert witnesses testified about military uniforms, insignias, and the authenticity of Mitchell's ID and medals, leaving no doubt that Holbrook's claims were baseless. The defense attempted to argue that Holbrook genuinely believed Mitchell was impersonating a service member, citing the anonymous tip. They portrayed him as an officer simply doing his job, albeit perhaps overzealously. They suggested that the prior complaints were minor, unconnected incidents, not indicative of racial bias. However, the sheer volume of evidence, especially Holbrook's own words on tape, made this defense crumble. The prosecution highlighted how a reasonable officer, following proper procedure, would have verified Mitchell's credentials, which would have immediately de-escalated the situation. Holbrook's refusal to do so, his immediate assumption of guilt, and his explicit racist comment sealed his fate. The jury, comprised of a diverse group of citizens, deliberated for just 4 hours. Their verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The courtroom was silent as the foreman read the verdict. Holbrook's face, which had maintained a stoic, almost defiant expression throughout the trial, finally showed a flicker of shock, then resignation. The judgment was swift and uncompromising. The sentencing hearing was equally impactful. The judge, noting the egregious nature of Holbrook's actions and the abuse of public trust, emphasized the profound damage done to both Mitchell and the community's faith in law enforcement. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell submitted a victim impact statement, read aloud in court, detailing not only the personal humiliation, but the wider implications for trust between military service members and civilian authorities. He spoke of the sacred bond of the uniform and how Holbrook's actions desecrated that trust. Travis Holbrook was sentenced to 58 years in federal prison. The sentence was a powerful message. Abuse of power, especially when fueled by racial prejudice, would not be tolerated. He was also ordered to pay restitution to Mitchell for damages, though the true cost of the indignity was incalculable. Holbrook's uniform, the symbol of authority he had so brazenly misused, was stripped from him. He was led away in civilian clothes, his career, his freedom, and his reputation utterly destroyed. The community, the military, and the nation watched as an officer who once saw himself as infallible faced the full consequence of his unchecked bias. But did this single conviction truly address the systemic issues that allowed Holbrook to operate for so long? Travis Holbrook's conviction and 58-year federal prison sentence sent shockwaves through the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. While many saw it as a victory for justice, the larger question lingered. How could a deputy with 14 documented complaints of racial bias over 9 years remain on patrol, his behavior unchecked, until he targeted a decorated Navy SEAL? The problem was not just Holbrook, it was the system that enabled him. The U.S. Attorney's Office initiated a consent decree investigation into the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. This federal oversight, typically reserved for departments with systemic patterns of misconduct, aimed to identify and rectify deficiencies in training, supervision, and internal accountability. It forced the department to confront its long-standing practice of treating each complaint against Holbrook in isolation, never connecting them to form a clear pattern of racial profiling. The internal reviews, written reprimands, and mandatory retraining sessions that Holbrook had attended but never internalized were exposed as hollow gestures, failures of real oversight. Sheriff Robert Decker, facing immense pressure, acknowledged the department's failures. He initiated sweeping reforms, including enhanced implicit bias training, revised internal affairs protocols to flag officers with multiple complaints, and a commitment to independent civilian oversight. But the damage was already done. Public trust, especially within communities of color, had been severely eroded. How long would it take to rebuild that trust, and at what cost? For Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, the legal victory was bittersweet. He had stood firm, upholding his oath and his identity against an officer who saw only the color of his skin. He continued his exemplary service with the Navy SEALs, deploying again within months of the trial, back to missions where integrity and trust were matters of life and death. He carried the trauma of the arrest, the indignity of being cuffed in uniform, but he also carried the quiet resolve that his stand had forced a reckoning. Mitchell's experience sparked a national conversation about racial profiling in policing and the persistent challenges faced by Black service members. It highlighted the cognitive dissonance that allows some in authority to dismiss the accomplishments of people of color, projecting their own biases onto symbols of national pride. Mitchell had not just fought a battle against an unjust arrest, he had fought a battle against a deeply ingrained perception, a narrative that sought to deny his legitimacy. The case of Travis Holbrook became a stark reminder of the thin blue line dilemma, the unofficial code of silence and protection that can prevent accountability within law enforcement agencies. Deputies Santos and Coleman, who had witnessed Holbrook's racist remark, faced an agonizing choice between loyalty to a colleague and their sworn duty. Their eventual testimony was crucial, but it also underscored the immense pressure officers face when confronting misconduct within their ranks. What unspoken rules make it so difficult for officers to report their own? The anonymous caller who sparked the incident was never charged, but their actions served as a potent symbol of unchecked prejudice in the community. The call, driven by pure assumption and racial bias, was the spark that ignited Holbrook's predetermined narrative. It raised questions about the responsibility of citizens to report genuinely suspicious activity versus reporting based on prejudice. The long shadow of Holbrook's actions extended beyond the department. Families who had suffered similar, unaddressed encounters with him now had a measure of vindication. Their complaints, once dismissed as insufficient evidence, were now seen in the context of a federal conviction. But for every documented complaint, how many went unreported? How many individuals suffered similar indignities in silence, lacking the military credentials and the Pentagon's reach that ultimately protected Lieutenant Commander Mitchell? The story of Deputy Travis Holbrook and Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell is not just about a single bad cop or a single act of racism. It is a haunting systemic question about the very structures of accountability. When internal mechanisms fail and external pressures are required to force change, what does that say about the foundation of trust between those who swear to protect and serve and the communities they are meant to uphold? The resolution of this specific case offered justice, but the underlying questions about bias, oversight, and the true meaning of serving remain, echoing in the quiet spaces where unresolved truths often reside.